us today, I think. Gary Turk is here, president of the DANC, committee chair, as well as Jim Wright and Gary. So Gary, you can start off on that.
Everyone knows this is Jim Wright, Executive Director of DANC, and Carrie Tuttle, Director of Engineering in DANC, and myself, Gary Turk. Chairman Taball asked if we could do a presentation of projects that DANC is involved in Lewis County. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Jim and Carrie.
Thank you. It's nice to be back among you again, and this time I've saved the PowerPoint presentation and left that to Carrie. I'm going to keep this short. Inside your packets, you will find a list called Lewis County Projects. At the top of it is the Lyons Falls Mill Site redevelopment, and you've been and seen the site. Those of you who came down and walked the site. We've essentially completed the first two phases funded by the state of New York, along with county and local development corporation dollars and Kruger money being invested in the site. So we have a third project. We've also been joined by our board member, Dennis Massachusetts. Dennis? You missed the introductions, I apologize. Anyway, we're now in, as you received a map of the site, we're into the third phase, and that will be the old steam house. So we believe we have the funding put together to move forward with that as well. So that's where we are in terms of the site. If anybody has any questions, feel free. Carrie or I will answer them, probably Carrie. I'll just quickly move through the rest of them for you because we were asked to do a presentation on GIS, so I'm going to leave the time for that one. In addition to the redevelopment work we're doing on site, we're working with the county and the village to develop a comprehensive plan for the brownfield site that was funded with state dollars. So we're leading that process and have completed the competitive solicitation of proposals and selected the Bergman Associates to begin working on that process. We've had one meeting with DEC and Department of State representatives. We have a second meeting coming up May 10th. Craft, like the county, we've tried to offer our assistance to the village and work on the craft project. So those are the two offerings, engineering and technical assistance, as well as our board authorized up to $10 million in low interest loans to assist the financing of the village project. We've been working with the county to advance their other regional development projects. Of course, Lyons Falls was one of them. Krogan Dam was another one. We're working on doing a feasibility analysis of that and whether or not it's viable. A couple months ago, our board authorized single-stream recycling incentives to the 3 counties who are our partners at $5 a ton for recyclable material and up to $100,000 in capital investment. We're very pleased with the way Lewis County has stepped up. They're really serving as a regional model, and Pete Woods and all of the county is to be commended for your efforts in terms of clear bags, in terms of single stream. You have become the model for advertising with using Mel Busler. So we have supported that effort, matching our money with the county money, and we will now begin a second round of interviews, or excuse me, of commercials fostering those same ideas throughout the other 2 counties, including Lewis County, at our expense. So that will be continuing, and we really appreciate your leadership on that. In the telecommunications arena, we're working with the county. You have authorized the use of your wireless towers. Copenhagen School District, BOCES, and the Mohawk Network to provide wireless last-mile interconnect to families within that service area of the school district so that they can have internet connectivity in an accessible and affordable manner. And last but not least, our board authorized a 1-year GIS hosting services free to Lewis County so that you could see the level of services, determine the level of service you were interested in. We could determine the appropriateness of the cost level. This is an offer we made to St. Lawrence County, and they accepted that, and we just completed a 5-year contract with St. Lawrence County to host their services. So with that, if anybody has any questions on any of those topics, I'm not looking to belabor them, just bring you up to date, and then we'll go to Carrie. Phil.
Just one quick one.
Yes.
Because I don't want Liz giving me the look.
Okay, so I'll stand in front of her.
Thank you. We appreciate the contributions for the recycling. And I was wondering, the $5 a ton, is that forever, or is that for a year, or is that gonna go on all the time?
You asking me, am I gonna raise it? Maybe.
No. Well, no, are you gonna?
I anticipate that there will be a long-term commitment in terms of subsidizing recycling.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because really to make it work, you need to underwrite some of that cost, and that's decidedly to our advantage and your advantage in terms of the cost of landfill construction. So initially it's funded for a couple of years. I would anticipate that we will continue beyond that.
And the $100 grand is just up to, and that's it?
Yes, that's a one-time, and again, that's subject to some discussion, obviously, going forward, but the intent was if changes had to be made to either transfer sites or, in the case of St. Lawrence County, they're looking at vehicles, then we would participate in that cost up to $100,000, which is a third of the cost. So it means the counties would be investing as well.
Good, thanks.
Thank you. Very good, thank you. And with that, let me turn it over to Carrie, who oversees the engineering and environmental division for us, and in that division is the GIS services. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, and thanks for inviting us this evening. It's nice to be able to come and show you a little bit of some of the projects that we're working on in Lewis County. So, can everybody hear me okay? All right. Does everybody have, anybody would like a copy of the handouts? We've got some extra folders here. Rocky. Great. So oh, absolutely, yeah, there's a few more there. So I just want to start out and give you a little bit of history on our geographic information system. We started building our GIS in 2002, and originally the program evolved because the authority had a huge amount of infrastructure that we are actually responsible for. You're familiar with our landfill. We also have regional water and wastewater facilities that were constructed when the authority actually was established in the mid-80s to serve Fort Drum. And so we had built out regional water and sewer lines from the city of Watertown to Fort Drum. And then in the mid-90s, we also constructed a regional water line that spans from Cape Vincent to Glen Park. And so then in the early 2000s, we built out our telecommunication fiber optic network. And so we really had acquired a lot of infrastructure, and we needed a way to visualize and spatially see this infrastructure. And so GIS was really key for us to be able to properly manage this infrastructure. So that's how our system began. We were utilizing GIS at the beginning for planning, for environmental permitting, and also for operations, and we still are to this day. We started out small with our GIS, and then we actually applied for several different grant funds. We utilized funds from the New York State Archives program. We've also received funding from the New York State Department of State Local Government Efficiency program. And through this funding, we've been able to continue to build on this shared service model and actually expand our services, because a lot of what we're doing is the same thing that counties and municipalities are doing. And so we were able to really take all the lessons learned and the investment that we have made into our GIS, and then be able to offer that out to our partners. And so that's a little bit of background and kind of how our GIS program has evolved. So today, we actually have 63 GIS customers. And what I mean by a GIS customer is we have 63 local governments, one county, and some special districts in there, actually 59 town and villages in 5 counties that actually have written hosting services agreements with us. So this isn't just that our map viewer happens to include their town. If we actually included all of the towns in those 5 counties, that number would be a lot bigger than 63. But these are specific communities that have infrastructure data that we're hosting. Water, sewer, soil and water conservation districts, specific layers that they want to be available through this map viewer. So the services that we're actually offering, we're we have staff that will actually go out in the field and develop data layers for these customers. We also will host this data on the map viewer that we've developed, and the map viewer doesn't require any special software. All you need is an internet browser. So it really lowers the barrier of entry for a lot of these communities that are small enough that they would not otherwise be able to access a service. Through our map viewer, they don't have to have any specialized staff. They don't have to pay licensing fees for complicated software that maybe only resides on one person's computer that's only accessible by them. They can have us host this data, develop it, and maintain it, and keep it up to date as there's changes in their system. We also just recently did an upgrade to our map viewer, so it's now accessible on mobile devices. So on your iPads, I see some of you have some iPads around the table. If you're actually connected to the internet, you can access our map viewer through your iPad, through mobile phones, through any type of mobile device. Additionally, we provide training and then also customer service. So like technical support, if folks have problems, they call in and we have staff in the office that will handle those questions. This is a map that shows those 63 customers. So you can see from this map that we are pretty underserved in Lewis County. We've got a big concentration of customers in Jefferson County. That sort of spilled over into Oswego County. A large concentration of customers in St. Lawrence County, including St. Lawrence County itself, that we're hosting data for. And then we also just recently started hosting data for the village of Saranac Lake. So in terms of authority Lewis County GIS initiatives, I mentioned that Lewis County is pretty underserved, and you saw that from the map viewer, but from the map on the prior page. But actually in 2011, we worked with Lewis County, and there was a grant from the Northern Border Regional Commission, and the authority actually, through that grant, developed water and wastewater GIS for the village of Lyons Falls, for the village of Port Lyden, and then also for the town of Martinsburg. Also, as part of this, we did some other shared services evaluation, and we also implemented SCADA, which is supervisory control and data acquisition at those facilities, water and wastewater plants. And then in 2016, just recently, we partnered with the village of Loudville, Curran, Carthage, the town of Watson, and also Lewis County to submit a New York State Archives grant. That grant, if funded, will allow us to develop all of the infrastructure data and layers for all of these communities and transition any Lewis County data or do data development from their existing records into the current IMA platform. So this archives funding is a really great source because it only funds shared services projects. It doesn't fund a single entity out on their own. They're really pushing to not have all these disparate systems and to centralize and be efficient. And then also the other great thing about this grant is there's no co-funding. It's actually 100% grant funds that pays for this, and the communities don't actually have to have any local share, and there are very few programs that are like that anymore. So it's a huge benefit for these communities that otherwise may not be able to have the local share money to make the investment to kind of take them to the next step. So how do we use our GIS? Well, I mentioned at the beginning that we're using it for planning, we're using it for environmental permitting and operations, but it's also supporting a lot of regional priority projects. The map, those of you that went on the tour that saw this map, this came from our GIS. So, we use GIS to support all kinds of grant applications and regional priority projects. Pretty much everything we do, GIS is integrated into it at some level. And so at all different levels in the organization, we're utilizing our GIS to support these projects that we're doing for our partners, for our local governments and the counties that we work with. When we started in 2002, we had no GIS staff. We had a project engineer. That was me, actually. And since that time, we've grown our GIS group, and we actually have 3 full-time staff that work solely on GIS now. And along with those GIS staff, because GIS is so integrated in what we do, all of our technical staff, including myself, we all have a background in GIS. So, our sole function may not be GIS, but we know how GIS works. We use GIS, and it's really integrated in what we do. So with that database kind of back end and technical support, it really gives us a deep bench of resources to be able to utilize when we need to manage this program and to help grow it and develop it. The software that we're using is Esri Software, and that's really the industry standard. It's been around for over 30 years, and they have over 350,000 customers worldwide. So it's very well supported, it's long-standing, it's not going anyplace, very robust, and so that's the software platform that we're using for our GIS. So about 5 years ago, I actually went to a presentation up at the Ranger School in Wanakina, and one of the things that they were talking about at that presentation was map viewers. And Tug Hill had put on a presentation, and they actually put this map up there, and they showed about 24 different map viewers that existed in New York State. And what that meant, and the point of this presentation was, it's very inefficient for consumers of the data to actually try to find the data that they're looking for. If any of you have ever gone and tried to answer a question and gone on a map viewer, many of you may have gone to one map viewer and looked and didn't find what you needed, had to go to another map viewer. The Adirondack Park Agency has a map viewer, all of the counties have their own map viewer, Tug Hill Commission has a map viewer, we have a map viewer, DEC has a map viewer, so it gets really complicated and it makes it really hard for the people that are trying to consume the data. And it was sort of a light bulb moment at that meeting about, for the GIS professionals that were sitting in the room, that there's a better way to do this and to deliver this information. Not only that, but a more efficient way, because all these map viewers are demanding resources that are being paid for with tax dollars. So you have staff that are creating layers and updating information and pushing data out to these different map viewers, and that's all taking up effort. And if these different map viewers contain some of the same information, it really doesn't make sense. So from an efficiency standpoint, it's not the best way to do things. From a consumer standpoint, it's not the best way to get information, because all these map viewers are slightly different. They may have different tools, things might be organized differently, so you have a learning curve every time a customer is trying to go in and get information. So we actually are trying to promote consolidation of some of these map viewers so that it's easier to find data, and we're lowering the learning curve for consumers. And every new customer that joins on is helping to promote this larger shared service model, and it's allowing us to spread out those resources to be able to continue to develop better applications, better content, make the program more robust for all of those customers. So that's really where we're heading. We think there's a huge benefit for this. In terms of economic development, we handle dozens of calls from people that ask questions like, where is their water and sewer? Where are their fiber optic networks? And when I handle these calls, I ask them, are you sitting at a computer? And they almost always say yes. And I point them to our website, and they go on into our map viewer, and I show them where this data exists. And they're blown away. Every time I take one of those calls, they are absolutely blown away that this information exists in this format for a region. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't contain everything in the region, because we still do have some of these disparate systems, but there is a lot of information in there. So I think there's a huge benefit from an economic development perspective that we as a North Country could be capitalizing on. So with 63 customers, the authority is actually one of, if not the largest New York State municipal regional GIS mapping system. I actually did a little research on this and talked to some folks at Department of State, and they are not aware of any other map viewers in the state that have agreements, shared services agreements with a number of customers that we have. They are only aware of counties that are hosting data for their own towns. They don't know of any entities that actually have expanded and have data for 5 counties, which is what we've got right now. So this is continuing to grow. I think as this shared service model grows, it's going to continue to be well supported and well funded, because this is where the state wants to head. So it's going to give us access to additional opportunities. And we're going to capitalize on that by trying to help these communities develop data with these grants that we have access to. It's also being utilized by several state agencies. So I run into folks all the time from DOT or DEC, Department of Health or the Department of State, and they're actually going in and using our map viewer to get information as well. We actually track how many individual customers hit our map viewer every month, and we're up over, averaging over 2,500 individual customers every month. This last month we were upwards over 3,000. And this is continuing to grow as we add more customers. So in terms of progress towards, really implementing the recommendations of this planning study. So I mentioned that we have received local government efficiency planning study money. That's one of the grant funds that we've accessed. We actually did a study back in 2012, and that study included the 3 counties, which was Lewis, St. Lawrence, and Jefferson, which are the 3 counties that are in the Development Authority service area. And we also included the City of Watertown and the Tug Hill Commission to do a planning study to look at what type of savings we could achieve by consolidating map viewers. And that kind of came out of that light bulb moment that I had up at the Ranger School in Wanakina. And so that grant was funded, we completed the study. The study recommended that we consolidate our public map viewers, and we've been kind of moving on that path since then. Jim mentioned the progress that we've had with St. Lawrence County, and they actually have become a full partner, and we have a hosting agreement with them. Our services are fee-based. So, the authority actually, we're not a line item in the state budget. We receive our funding through contracts this is a local government service that we provide, and so we actually have contracts with the communities, and we have to charge for our fees to cover those costs. But because this is such a huge shared services model, this fee structure can be very reasonable. So our fee for St. Lawrence County for the first year was actually $1,200. So $100 a month. Many communities if they have GIS, are paying a lot more than this for the resources for software licensing and things like that. St. Lawrence County actually had a free cloud-based GIS that they were using prior to ours, and there was a change, and they didn't have anybody to actually maintain it anymore. So that's one of the drawbacks of some of the free kind of cloud-based versions. You'll hear, oh, well, there might be a free version, but that open source software comes with limitations because it doesn't get supported like the Esri software does, and that was the issue with them. And when they lost that support, their map viewer kind of became defunct, and they needed help, and so they came to us. So this is actually the same option that we've extended to our other partners, including Lewis County, which would be a free year of hosting, as Jim said, so that we could figure out what that pricing structure would be, but I would imagine it would be similar to St. Lawrence County. And we've actually provided a hosting agreement to the county in your packet. You have a copy of the draft hosting agreement that we had prepared and presented to the county previously. So I did want to just take a couple minutes and real quickly show you our map viewer and actually pull up Lyons Falls, since we're in Lyons Falls, and I see the mayor is here. I thought I would pull up some of Katie's information and show you some of the neat things that we've done with Lyons Falls, because we've actually mapped out quite a few things in Lyons Falls. So if you go to our webpage, which is www.danc.org, there's a big button on the top, right, Eric?
Yes, there is.
And it says DANC GIS Map Viewer. It's too obvious. Eric called me the other day and was looking for the button, and he was down in the weeds, but it was right up there at the top, so he got it. So if you click on that, it's going to take you to this page, and this just tells you a little bit that this is not survey data, and so you still need to call in dig safely requests. It's sort of a legal disclaimer at the beginning. You need to agree. If you don't agree, then you can't get into the map viewer. So we actually have the ability with our map viewer, and this is one of the unique functions of our map viewer that some other map viewers don't offer, is that we have different portal levels. So we have public portals, which are accessible to anyone with no password, and you'll notice that Jefferson, Lewis, St. Lawrence County, our OATN, which stands for Open Access Telecom Network, and West Telecom, which is actually a private telecommunication company that's also hosting with us, they all have public map viewers. This data is data that these customers have said, we want you to make public, and we don't want there to be any password protection. And so we put that data in this public map viewer for customers to be able to access. On the customer side, you actually can see all of the municipalities that we have. And so this list goes down here, and there's all of these communities that we've done mapping for. And some of the customers you see on the public side also have a private map viewer. They may have additional layers that they don't want to make public, that they only want to be private, so that's why they may have two different portals in here. So I'm just going to pick on the Village of Lyons Falls, and I'm going to log in. We also have authority division specific portals over here for our different internal use. So logging into the map viewer, what you're going to see is you're going to see the map on the right hand side, and you're going to see this kind of table where your options are. This is where you're going to select what information that you want to see. In any map viewer, any one of those logins that you go in, it's going to be set up exactly the same way. So once you get used to it, it's going to be the same thing no matter what, no matter where you go. And the different information that you're going to have access to, one of the other unique features about our map are the number of base maps that we have. So we have a lot of different base maps. We have different imagery that's available. Imagery with labels. We have streets, we have topography, we have different terrain, we have an open street map, some topo, a USGS map, and then also 2014 and 2015 ortho imagery that comes for Lewis, St. Lawrence, and Jefferson. All this base map data is all publicly available information that we receive. So this is not anything that we have to pay to maintain. This is data that we're pulling from other sources and we're providing in our map viewer for all of our customers. So this is one of those things that I was explaining. Anybody that has a map viewer has to go out and get these data and update them whenever there is new data that's coming. And that's a level of effort that your staff would have to provide if you have your own map viewer. We do it once for all these customers. Then under map layers, what you're going to see are the different specific data layers that are available for this specific login. So under Lewis County, the things that you're going to see here, this is the parcel, these are the parcel maps that the county maintains. Nothing will, if you decided to host your data with us, nothing's going to change. You're still going to have, your folks are still going to maintain your tax map layers just like they do right now. But they would provide those shape files to us and we would upload them to our system like we do right now. Lewis County is actually, the counties are already providing all these data to us, so we actually do this already. For Lyons Falls specifically, then this is where we have additional customer specific information. So we have things like water mains, laterals, curb stops, hydrants, valving, and then we also have information on their wastewater system. If there's any stormwater, we have that in here, and then sometimes there's some other information that wouldn't fit into those categories. And actually Lyons Falls has some cool things. They did a NYSERDA Cleaner Greener grant, and they actually installed some trails, did some trail improvements, and the actual road out here with the walkway, the bike walking path, the pavement lining, that was part of that project, and so that was all mapped out in the trails. So these are kind of some of the features that are available. The way the map viewer actually works is you can zoom in. If you have a mouse, you can roll in, or you can use these buttons here to kind of zoom in. And as you zoom in, the parcel layer turns on. So that's this information that you're seeing here. This is the mill site. For those of you that were here, you can drag this around. You can move it around. You can click on different parcels within the map viewer. It's going to pull up information about the property owner. This is information from the parcel layer. We'll show you the assessed value, the current property owner, the address of the current property owner, things like that. Another function of our map viewer that's a little different is we actually have the ability to hyperlink PDF documents to our map viewer, which is very powerful. So this could be things like, when you're mapping out water mains, for example. So I'll just turn on water mains in the village. There may be data that technically somebody wants besides just the information that's in the database for the water main. So in the water main, it's going to show you the diameter, it's going to tell you what type of material it is. It's ductile iron pipe, for example. But I might also there's a road crossing, and I actually want to see the material for the road crossing. I want to know how deep that pipe is buried, I want to know what the casing material is. That doesn't lend itself to GIS because it's not really spatial information, it's more detailed information. We actually take those drawings, those engineering as-built drawings, and we scan them and we hyperlink them and link them to the data that's in our database. So it provides a whole nother level of information, photos, reports, inspection records, whatever you can think of, all of that data can actually be linked. So in effect, what the GIS is really doing is it's replacing a huge amount of hard copy paper records that oftentimes end up in some corner of a wastewater treatment plant with, you know, wastewater on them, which we sometimes find when we have to go get these drawings and bring them back in and scan them. So again, you can turn on different, here's the sidewalks. We actually did an inventory of the village's sidewalks. We color coded based on condition. So another valuable way that GIS can be used is if you're doing a capital project, how great would it be for you actually to be able to turn on pavement and see the condition of your pavement at the same time that you're looking at the age of your water mains and the condition of your sidewalks, so that when you're planning a block replacement, you might say, gee, the pipe in the ground's 100 years old, maybe we should do that at the same time. Or the curbs are bad in this area, and since we're already going to be doing these improvements, let's do this at the same time. This may seem simple, but for those of you that have had to try to find the answers to these questions by looking at 10 different sheets of drawings, it's a huge improvement and way to be able to actually access information all in one place that doesn't normally exist for most communities. And Katie, I don't know if you have anything to add. I know you've helped with some of the inputting some of the data for the Village of Lyons Falls, and we've certainly used your maps on a lot of the projects, including the Brownfield project coming up.
Yes.
We actually are sharing all of this data with the consultant, and this was a huge benefit for them.
And DANC also did a planning for us too, an assessment plan.
Yeah, an asset
for us.
management plan.
Asset management, and a lot of that went into there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The roads and
Yep.
hydrants.
So that's sort of kind of the 10,000-foot flyover. There are all kinds of tools. There are measurement tools. There are Bing street views where you can zoom right in down on the street level and spin around. There's all kinds of cool stuff. But I know you guys are short on time, so I'm not going to take up the time. You can actually print maps from here to a PDF. Email them, so whatever you see on the screen, if you want to pull up a parcel map or something, you can actually add a title, print it out to an email. Huge amount of functionality. I'd be happy to come down and do a more in-depth demo. We are also going to be offering some training sessions around the area, and I'll certainly get the notice out to Liz if anybody's interested in attending that. Any questions?
You were doing good until you got to page 8, and then you started talking about money.
It's a year free, Phil.
But everything leading up, the services that you described on pages 1 through 7, is there a cost for that, or is it the cost of getting the documents to you and whatever, and then our only cost would be the annual fee?
Right. So I think if I understand what you're asking, you're kind of asking about like data development. Is there a cost for the data development?
Right. To set this up, you know?
Right. So the archives grant that, if funded, will actually pay for, and we have included all of this records conversion for Lewis County. So we actually, as part of that grant application, we came and did a needs assessment with all those communities around the list, including Lewis County, and we inventoried all your hard copy records and the data that you already have in a digital format. And that archives grant includes converting and pulling all that data into the system. So there would be no charge for the county for any of that if that grant is funded. The hosting is the only fee that the county would have. If you develop data on your own, which you will do, like your parcel layers and things like that, and you turn that data over to us to upload, we upload it for free as part of our hosting service. So there's no cost. The only way there would be a cost is if you said, Development Authority, we want you to go out and map all of the county roads and do a conditional assessment on the county roads. Well, that would be a level of effort. We would give you, we could do that.
Oh, give. You said give.
Give you a quote. And we'd tell you what it would be and then you would decide. But it would only be if you were doing something like that, where you were actually developing new data that doesn't currently exist. And so we would have to send staff out in the field essentially to do the data collection and build the data model for you.
Okay.
And some communities do that. I mean, we have communities that, well, Clayton is a good example. Clayton actually, we started out with water and sewer. They went out and they did 911 addresses for all of their island properties for fire and rescue for their emergency management services, because they wanted to know which docks they needed to actually respond to. So that was something that they asked us, and they may have got other funding for, I'm not sure, but that was an additional charge for us to actually go out and pick up the GPS locations and map in all the docks. So they created this whole emergency management services layer in their map viewer.
Well, that doesn't worry me too much, because last year's presentation was, Jim said you guys work cheap.
We do, actually. We're the best deal in town.
So,
Aren't I, Larry? Come on.
Everything's relative.
Yes.
Yeah, one little question about that. So I see that you have an agreement going in, and that there's a yearly cost if we agree to accept your services. And then if we don't like your services?
Great question. So everything that we develop is your data. You own it. If you sign up for free hosting with us for a year and you don't like the service, you don't like what we do, whatever, you get all the data that gets developed. We deliver it back to you in shapefile format. You can host it yourself. You could have somebody else host it. It's your information. You own it, and so there's no real risk. There's not anything that we're creating that you don't get back.
So I haven't read this hosting agreement in total yet, because I was trying to listen to you. Very good presentation, by the way. But if our board of legislators makes this agreement with you, what period of time is the agreement for? Is it renewed on a yearly basis?
So there's a couple different conditions kind of in here. If the archives grant comes through, then the archives grant actually covers the hosting for a year period. That's part of the grant. So if that happens, typically the funding cycle for archives is that work, that data development piece would have to be completed by June 30th of 2017. And that is when the free hosting period would actually start, would be June 30th of 2017 if the archives grant is funded. And so then you would actually have a 12-month period of hosting that gets picked up, the cost which gets picked up for by the archives grant, and then the paid service would actually come in after that. If the archives grant isn't funded, then the free hosting period would start whenever you decided that you wanted, the county decided that they wanted to enter into that contract with us. And if the county decided that they wanted to enter into the contract with us, and I'm sure we could work something out, Jim, if there was some period, we think we're going to hear about the archives by July. It's typically the funding notification is around July, so there's really just a few months here between now and then, between when we should get notification from archives about that grant application that was submitted.
the short answer is it's all negotiable. Everything we do is based on mutual agreement. So, we suggest a 5-year contract. You'll also notice that there's a cancellation clause in it. And that's really at will. So if you decide you don't like it, end of story. We have that common provision in all of our contracts. So we do 5 years because we think it's good for municipal planning and our own financial planning, but there's no magic to 5 years. We can do a 2-year, 3-year, whatever the municipality would like to have. We're flexible enough to accommodate that request.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Carrie. Any other questions on any of the topics? If not, thank you again. We appreciate you being part of the Development Authority. That's what Lyons Falls will look like when we're all done. The destination point. And in turn, thank you very much. On to your county business.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Notice you didn't let Dennis talk at all, is that?
Please no.
Or Gary either.
Somebody had to keep an eye on Tom back.
Thanks for coming anyway.
Thank you, Michael. We'll give you a deal.
Yeah, I guess our recess.
Room's open now.
2-minute recess.